Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Angela Pauls. Angela Pauls is the Chief Marketing Officer for Buzz Franchise Brands, the parent company for service brands Pool Scouts, Home Clean Heroes, British Swim School, and Wonderly Lights. Angela has been with Buzz since the company launched in 2012 with a founding brand, Mosquito Joe, which was sold to Neighborly in 2018 after growing to over 300 units. Her responsibilities span new brand development, corporate marketing and branding, franchise development marketing, and marketing support for her franchise partners. Angela started her career in advertising before transitioning into higher education marketing for the University of Texas at Austin, and later to franchise marketing. Angela also co-founded and ran a successful coffee shop business in Austin, Texas. She's a proud graduate of the University of Texas at Austin and a certified franchise executive, and has been named among Entrepreneur's top CMO game changers. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Nice. Top CMO game changers. Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I understand you're back in Texas, where you lived previously, went to school in Texas. You've also traveled all over the world. Can you tell us a little bit about your travels, maybe when you were younger, as well as what brought you back to Texas now?
Yeah, sure. So as a child, Texas was always home. I grew up in Houston with my family. And when I was a child, we traveled quite a bit. So my dad's career took us to the UK, and I spent about 5 years on and off, back and forth between the US and the UK and England and Wales, around the time I was starting school. So kind of in that 5 to 9 year old period. Really unique and special experience that I think is incredible to have as a young child. But then we returned back to Houston. That was where I went through high school and everything, and then moved to Austin to go to school at the University of Texas. After that, I stayed in Austin for a while, started a career in advertising, transitioned into higher education marketing, returned to the University of Texas to do that. And while doing that, founded a coffee shop business in Austin. That was really what sparked my passion for entrepreneurship and got me involved in that. And then in 2012, my husband's military career moved us up to Virginia, up to Norfolk, Virginia. And that was when I met the CEO of Buzz Franchise Brands, Kevin Wilson. And he was first at that time recruiting the initial corporate team for what at the time was our founding brand, Mosquito Joe, and what over the years developed into Buzz Franchise Brands. So I was up in Virginia with Buzz for about 9 years, and I'm still with Buzz, but my husband's military career ended up moving us back to Texas about 2 years ago. So now I am back in Texas working remote for Buzz and traveling back and forth between the two. But the majority of our team is located in Virginia Beach at our corporate headquarters.
What a great story. You know, I lived abroad also, Angela, for 14 years in Switzerland. And I know I got a lot of blessings of that. I was actually born in Switzerland and then came to the US speaking German. But I think you get certain blessings out of that, including the ability to adapt to different cultures and environments. Can you speak to that a little bit, what you think you learned or what you think you got out of your experiences living abroad?
Absolutely. I think it's something, especially as an adult, I look back on and see how much I think it just impacted my perspective on life early on and what I learned and took from that. But I think it just opens your eyes to the fact that there are all kinds of people, that the world is much bigger than your hometown or, you know, your little friend circle, the little bubbles that we tend to live in. Moving overseas, for me, I have two brothers. And so I kind of had a couple people doing it with me. So I didn't feel totally alone going into these new schools, and we went to British schools. And so we moved over there, and we were the kids with the American accents. And, you know, became famous very quickly within the school because we didn't go to American schools. And then when we moved back from there, we were all young enough to pick up on the British accent. So we all got British accents. And then when we moved back, we were the kids with the British accents. And so we were famous again for a different reason. But it was so meaningful to be put in uncomfortable situations. It was nerve-wracking to try to make new friends, especially when you're kind of highlighted as being so different than everybody else. And there's pros and cons to that, because, you know, it was very cool in some regard to have this unique person there, but it also did, you know, kind of make you stand out in a way that can be uncomfortable as well. So, but I made so many good friends out of that I even still keep in touch with or have reconnected with as adults. As the world became more connected over the years with social media and that sort of thing, that was one of the blessings for me that came from that, was I was able to reconnect with some people from when I was, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old. And I've made trips back since then as an adult and gone and visited these friends and seen their families and everything since then. So I think it just opened up my eyes from a very young age that we can't get too hung up on ourselves, and we can't get too hung up on what we think is right in the world, because there's so many different circumstances out there that we may just not have experienced yet.
This reminds me so much of a conversation, Rebecca, that we had with Nora about living places. And I have to say that, you know, there's so much to be said for all of the transitions that you went through. You know, how did you navigate the uncertainty that comes with moving to a new place, a new town, a new country?
I think it helped that I didn't have a choice. I didn't make the choice to move. I had my parents telling me what was happening. So I had to learn to accept a new circumstance and then appreciate it for what it was. And so appreciate that I got to go see these new places and countries that none of my friends got to see or understand. And it was very different. You know, we got to be running through castles and all these, you know, just it sounds like a very random thing, but all these cool nuances of where we were living in England and in Wales that just you would never see in Houston, Texas. So I think it was, you know, navigating it, kind of accepting it probably first, just this is what's happening, finding the things to be excited about. And then in the nervous, uncomfortable aspects of it, just relying on my family as that base of the people I'm going through it with and the people that I can talk to about it if I'm uncomfortable.
It's interesting because I recognize that feeling, and it does kind of force you to be more adaptable. You can't bring Houston with you, technically. You're in a brand new environment. You're the oddball out, at least temporarily, till you learn how to fit in, right? Kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, the opposite happens, and you're this girl that sounds like she's British, who is thrown into a whole new environment. And once again, you can't bring the UK with you. It's you that has to adapt. And I would go as far as say, embrace where you are and those environments. Would you agree that some of this is not just about being adaptable, but truly embracing where we are?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think it's appreciating the moments that you get and the experiences that you get, and fully being present for those, And also, I think having just a sense of humor about situations helps too. I mean, I really enjoy looking back at home videos of myself with a British accent because I didn't realize it was happening as I got a British accent. And then I didn't realize the process as it was going away either. But people look at me and they're like, when I've traveled other places or moved to other places and would say I'm from Texas, people would say, well, where's your accent? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I ever had a Texas accent. I don't know if there's any inklings of having one now, but I've had so many accents in my life that I'm not too worried about it.
That is so great. I'm laughing because I'm thinking, well, I wasn't running through castles in Brooklyn, that's for sure. But when I am around other people from Brooklyn, my Brooklyn accent really starts to come out. So I'm sitting here like thinking about, your accent coming in, going out as a little girl. That's precious. So I have a question for you, which is I'm sitting here listening to you talking about accepting, navigating, embracing, finding the right things to be excited about, or finding the things to be excited about and relying on others. And I'm thinking franchise. Like these are all elements that I think that a new entrepreneur in the franchise space like has to navigate. Can you talk about that a little bit in the terms that you were speaking about earlier?
Yeah, I think franchising and business ownership is very similar in that you don't have it all figured out before you start doing it. You don't necessarily know what's going to come around the corner throughout the life of your business. And so I do think it's important to have the right attitude as you go through it. I tend to be an optimist, a glass half full type of person. And that doesn't mean I don't get frustrated or angry with situations, but I don't tend to dwell on them. I tend to say, okay, well, this is not the way I saw this going, but I need to find the good in it. I need to turn it around. I need to do whatever and feel comfortable leaning on others who might be able to help me in this situation. And that's what is beautiful about franchising is, or our franchisees, not only do they have us at the franchisor or the corporate team to be able to help them figure out a situation or make sure they're utilizing the right tools or advise them on the systems that we're so familiar with, but they have each other. They have, this broad network of other business owners running the same type of business as them that they can bounce off and maybe it's getting ideas and fixes to problems. And maybe it's just having someone to vent to who understands and who can bring you back to that moment and say, you know what, I've been there, but it's going to be okay. And just kind of move on from that.
That's a great way to describe franchising for sure. So, Angela, you mentioned your brothers. And I understand that you lost one of your brothers at a pivotal time in your life. How do you think that whole experience took you to another place or allowed you to learn or to grow or to express yourself in different ways?
Yeah, I had two brothers growing up. We were very close in age, kind of about a year and a half in between each of us. And I lost my middle brother when I was in my early 20s. And it definitely changed a lot of things for me. It was very unexpected. It wasn't anything I was prepared for, but it changed the trajectory of everything for me. I mean, one of the things that he was working on at the time that he passed away was developing a business plan for a coffee shop business. And quite frankly, I was working a very safe career in advertising and marketing. I never would have had the guts to just start a business and, put a bunch of money into something I had no idea if it was going to be successful or not. But I was so appreciative of the work that he had put into this. And I always loved a coffee shop environment. And I thought, well, maybe someday in my retirement or something, I could do a side hustle, coffee shop sort of thing. But the world just didn't work that way for me. And I ended up having an opportunity to get involved in purchase a failing coffee shop, basically, and turn it around. And I did that while working a full-time job. So it was very busy, and it was not franchising. So there were no systems in place for me. I had to really be scrappy and figure it out and just ask a lot of questions and take things head on. But I like a challenge. I'm a competitive person. I think as a youngest sibling, that tends to give you a sense of competitiveness and also a sense of scrappiness. And so those, I think, both helped me in being able to run that business. And then I think that's really just what sparked my passion and understanding for entrepreneurship in general. So when I moved up to Virginia and met Kevin Wilson and started exploring the opportunity in franchising, the idea of working for a corporate team that was going to be developing marketing programs to support people who wanted to run a successful business, that just felt like a great use of my skill set because I had the marketing knowledge. I knew how to put together a strong marketing program, and I had the passion for entrepreneurship. So the fact that I could pull those both together into what I was going to be doing and constantly be meeting new business owners was just incredibly appealing and exciting for me. And then, over the years, at the time, that was for one brand, that was for Mosquito Joe. And that brand really grew quickly and took off. And our strategy changed to become a multi-brand platform. And so not only have I gotten to do that with so many different business owners, but it morphed into business owners in different industries and launching new brands. And that's been really exciting too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would imagine that would help you to relate to where the different business owners were entering into the franchise, like at each individual point, right? Some people like coming from entrepreneurship, some people coming from corporate, some people having that really big fear about it, right? I would imagine that all of that would help you to relate to them with you having the experience of being on your own in business, not having that support with the coffee shop, and then all of a sudden being in franchise and having that full support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we talk to so many people who are looking at business ownership or franchising to transition out of the corporate world. I think that was sort of the way I would have thought I was going to do it, is like have my corporate career to get all this stability and save up money and then eventually become an entrepreneur. And for me, things changed quickly and I ended up being a business owner at 23, but it has given me a very much an appreciation of the franchising model, to have in conversation with people coming through the process and with franchisees, and also to understand the feeling behind wanting to transition from the corporate world, but also just the general passion when you've got the bug, and you want to start a business and have that rewarding feeling of giving back to people in the community. I mean, I loved the idea of creating a space. When I started the coffee shop, I didn't even drink coffee. I do drink coffee now, but at the time I didn't even like coffee. I just liked the community of a shop and a place where people would come in, and we sort of felt like the cheers of the neighborhood that we were operating in. And it was just really, it was something that was really special. And I think that's a special feeling to see other people get coming through and starting their franchise businesses, whatever the motivation is behind their decision to start that. It's also fun. We actually had a British swim school franchisee who signed recently, who is in her early 20s. She just graduated college. So it's fun to see other young people starting to think about and learn about franchising at a younger age.
So I think this is one thing that's not talked about enough in the world of franchising, is that sense of community that it does create, the relationships that will last a lifetime. You have similar challenges, you have similar goals, you have a similar day-to-day. There's a lot of bonding that goes on franchisee to franchisee, where you're building this community where others understand and you understand them, and you can mentor and you can learn from all of those things. So I'm really glad you brought up that component of it. You had it with your family in terms of you were all together in these changes, and now in the world of franchising. So there seems to be a theme here that I'm starting to see as you're talking, Angela. But let me get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And that is, if you had one thing that you wanted to share with our audience, women in franchising, women considering going in franchising, women in general, people in general, what would be a message you would like to share with our audience?
I think for me, that message would be about staying in and appreciating the moment that you're in now, finding your happiness and living that out, both personally and professionally, and not getting too hung up on what's next. We get asked a lot, whether it's in small talk conversations or interviews for people looking for jobs, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years or the next 10 years? And it can put a lot of pressure on us to feel like we have it all figured out. And if I think back to any of the big things that have happened in my life, I didn't see them coming in most cases, or at least, not very far in advance. And I never, until the year I started my coffee shop, I never realized I was going to be a business owner. Even when we moved up to Virginia, and I was looking at new jobs and exploring Mosquito Joe, this was a business I had never heard of. The mosquito control business was very small at the point that we started Mosquito Joe. And so I had, our CEO coming to me and pitching this business plan for mosquito business, which sounded, interesting, but odd, coming from Texas, where we had crazy mosquitoes and I'd never heard of it. And then also just getting into the franchising space, which I wasn't familiar with or educated on beforehand. And so that to me felt like a risky move at the time, because one, it was a startup. There were 5 of us when I was hired, and I had no idea what was going to happen. And now there's 75 of us and we've got 4 brands, and it's been one of the most incredible, probably the most incredible professional experience that I've had. But that largely came from just being open to opportunities and to what felt right in that time, and then making the most of it. So I think tied along with living in that moment or appreciating the things that we have is just staying curious and, continuing to learn and explore along the way. But I think if I were to put it in a nutshell, it would come down to that, don't worry if you don't have it all figured out. Just worry about what's happening right now. And are you fulfilled in what you're doing right now? And if you're not, change it. And whether that's changing a job, changing a location, learning something new, shaking it up somehow. It may be as simple as that, but don't get stuck in a rut. I think we can control our own happiness. Happiness is a choice, and there are things that we can do to affect that.
Are you saying that when we stay present, then we notice more possibilities?
Yeah, I think that that's a good way to think about it. We're more aware of what's going on right in front of us that we might be looking past if we're, when you think about, you can't see the forest through the trees, or almost the opposite of that. But I think one of the things, so I recently had children. I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and that has really helped me stay in the present, because it's a lot of work raising toddlers and having a professional career as well. But they help keep me present, because every time I start wishing, oh, I wish they could be more self-sufficient, or I wish they could entertain themselves on their own for, more than 5 minutes at a time. But when that time passes, I'm going to really miss the stage that they're at right now, where they really need me, and they're, snuggly, and they're saying adorable things, and I'm watching them learn and thrive. So I think they're also a constant reminder for me of, you got to appreciate where you are right now and not be constantly wishing for more or for different.
This is such a fabulous message to me. And a couple things are coming up as you're talking. First off, this is a lesson I need to learn. So I'm taking notes. And the second thing is, I'm looking at it from a scientific perspective, right? That being fully present in the moment, and at the same time, allowing yourself to be in uncomfortable situations sometime. And I think of our highest performance and satisfaction is when we can combine those two, be slightly uncomfortable, right? Not in that safe space all the time. And at the same time, be fully present, kind of like if you're learning a new ski technique or something of that nature. It's pushing it just a little bit, but being fully present at the same time. Is that how you see it too? I'm just kind of imagining what that feels like.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I think a lot of times the things that are going to get us to that fulfillment will have some tricky steps along the way, or some challenging things along the way, but that's what makes the payoff bigger. I mean, I think one of the things that I recently did an executive education program at the University of Texas, and it was a women's leadership program. Basically, it's called Women Who Mean Business. And I was in a room with 40 other women who were very successful in their careers in all different industries. So it wasn't franchising, it wasn't marketing, it was a little bit of everything. And I was uncomfortable in that room starting out, because I'm like, wow, these women are really incredible and have done incredible things. And who am I to stand here? And, I'm not one to be a great person to promote myself in a room like that. But it was great, because it did challenge me to say, you know what, I do deserve to be in this room. And, I think as women, we tend to not always give ourselves the credit. So that was an experience where I came out of that program, not only having some really great education that I took out of it, but some other great relationships with women in other industries that I can carry on with me throughout my career. Plus the lessons that I could take back to my day-to-day job. But it was going back and being uncomfortable a little bit along the way.
That's so interesting. I'm just like picturing being a fly on the wall in that room.
Yeah.
I mean, you think you've had some interesting experiences in your life, and then you start talking to other people and you're like, wow, there are women in that room who had, immigrated to the country and overcome a lot of hurdles to get to the point that they're at their career. It's really inspiring. People are really inspiring.
It is inspiring. So I guess that would lead me into the next question, which would be, what do you think are some of the attributes that successful women have in common?
I think understanding community and the value of community, what we can get from each other. So whether you have a big network or a small network, recognizing the value of that relationship, and not feeling or trying to do it all on your own all the time. I think you can hold yourself back by doing that, because other people aren't doing that. Other people are leveraging relationships and learning from each other, and we should be doing that too. I think the other thing is women who are able to, I guess, allow themselves to put themselves first at times, and to give themselves the permission to pursue the career that they want, or whatever it may be. I think it's innately hard for us to do that sometimes. When I had kids, I struggled with the fact that I travel a lot, and I relied on some female mentors who had been through that before to be like, it's okay. Like, now's a great time to be traveling because your kids are young and they're probably not even going to remember. but it also just said, like, it was an education to me that, look, focus on quality over quantity, because what they're going to remember is the time they did have with you. So make sure that that's really strong quality, and then find the right balance. And but it sort of gave me the permission to say, you know what, it's okay that you're prioritizing FaceTime with your team in Virginia Beach, who also need you, and who also, it's important to me that I'm giving them the best version of myself, and that I'm mentoring them in the way that I've been mentored over the years. And it's hard to do that remotely all the time. So it's really important to me that I am able to spend time with them as much as I can. So that was sort of a kind of digressing here, but I think that is something that's an important lesson to learn as you're a female going through the progression of your career and your goals as well.
This to me is paramount, because as women, we understand the importance of relationship, and we pour into those relationships as much as we can. But COVID has separated a lot of us when more of us are working remote. In your case, your husband's career took you back to Austin. How do you do that? How do you continue to foster team and relationship and inspire when you're not at the water cooler? You're not going to lunch together anymore. You're not catching a movie together. What do you do to keep your team fully engaged and know that you're there for them, and vice versa?
Yeah, it is challenging, and I hope that they would say some positive things about how it's working. But I make sure that I get FaceTime every week with everyone on the team. So it's, that happens virtually through Zoom or other video conferencing. But then in, my one-on-one meetings with people, I try to incorporate some of that water cooler talk. It's important to still know what's going on in their lives outside of just the tasks on their plate this week or that sort of thing, because that's probably the hardest thing about being remote is you don't have the water cooler talk opportunity in the hallway, or just reading someone's emotions by walking by them, so trying to still foster that through video conferencing. And then when I am there, when I do travel, I try to pretty much clear my calendar from any meetings that I don't have to, any meetings that I could do remotely the next week, and focus on FaceTime when I'm in the office. So, I'll keep my one-on-ones because we can have an opportunity to in person. I'll take as many people out to lunch as I can in the week that I'm there to have that opportunity, or a breakfast for coffee, things like that. And I do try to do sort of some virtual lunch dates or that sort of thing, but it's not the same as when I can be there in person. So I think prioritizing as much walking around the office and just spontaneous conversation is really the focus of my time when I'm there. And then I also do, once a year, we do a special marketing day. We call it Marketing Madness, but it's one day where our team spends a day together focused on professional development, as well as sort of some fun team building stuff along the way. So everybody really enjoys that. And I started doing that the year that I left. I did it the leading up to me leaving as sort of a last opportunity to all be together. And it was so great that we just decided to make it an annual thing. And so that's been a fun annual event that people look forward to.
That's awesome. You know, Angela, you're such a team builder. You're such an upbeat, positive person. You know, you're adaptable, you're flexible. I mean, you're darn nearly perfect. So I have to ask you this one question, which has been like burning me for like the past 15 minutes. If there is just one thing that pisses you off, that just gets you going, like what would one word be? Like the way I'm not even going to make it a leading question, but like, what is the one thing that is like your absolute deal breaker?
I mean, the word that comes to mind for me is negativity, because I just hate the way that negative people can bring down everybody and just change the energy for a person or change the energy in the room. It just feels like such a waste. So that I would say that's the word that comes to mind first.
That would totally make sense.
Negativity, pessimism.
Yeah. That's great.
What a
Yeah.
great question, Tracy. I've often wanted to ask on this show, what's your biggest pet peeve? And I thought, oh, that will take it a crazy way. So I'm really appreciative how you put that. That was perfect, because it's the one thing, negativity and pessimism, that will take you to a place you don't want to go. So we only have a few minutes, but I want to ask a final question, and that is around Buzz. Where are you guys going? What's the future? I know you want to be fully present and kumbaya with your entire team, and I'm all for that. But where are you going? What is Buzz up to for the future?
Yes, that's a great question. And it does point out you shouldn't completely ignore the future, especially in the business world. You want to make sure you are prepared for all the trends and things around the corner and adapting. But Buzz is really planning to continue to grow. So we've got 4 brands now, all in the service space. British Swim School is our largest brand. Plenty of room for them to still grow. And then we've got Pool Scouts, Home Clean Heroes, and Wonderly Lights. Wonderly Lights is our newest brand, launched just about a year and a half ago, in the holiday lighting space, but that's going to be expanding into a full service lighting brand. So that's an exciting project we've got going on. And then in addition to continuing our organic growth through the brands we have now, we're always open to opportunities to add additional brands into the portfolio. So that could always be something coming down the pipeline as well. I would say that's something where it's a part of the growth plan for us, but we're not necessarily trying to be one of the multi-brand franchisors that has 20 different brands. We'll probably stay in a smaller a smaller total number of brands where we're still really high touch with everyone that we're working with, but certainly opportunity to bring some more brands into the portfolio as well. So never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Not in franchising, that's for sure.
No.
Things are forever evolving, which is why your adaptability, your scrappiness, your grit, your optimism and your positivity has allowed you to constantly adapt and move, but still be fully present. And I think that's a beautiful message you bring to us today, is how we need to focus on those immediate relationships, be fully present so we don't miss an opportunity or the joy that comes from being in that, but at the same time, looking at the future and allowing it to, present itself, to unfold and to craft it to some extent along with your team, right? So we really appreciate you, Angela, for showing up today and allowing us to throw some crazy questions at you. We thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it, and hope people got something out of the conversation. But also just happy to share my experience and what I've learned along the way.
So where can you be reached?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Angela. I think Angela Zerta Pauls is how I'm listed on LinkedIn. That's a great place to find me and connect with me there. And then you can learn a lot more about Buzz Franchise Brands at our website, buzzfranchisebrands.com, and all the social places as well.
Nice.
Perfect. Tracy, your wrap up, hon.
Rebecca, I don't think I can do a better wrap up than you just did, but I will add that Angela, you are just a beautiful, shining soul, a community builder, so positive and upbeat. You know, you strike me as the type of person that sees the silver lining in any situation imaginable. And I know that if I had a bag of lemons, I would want you to hold it for me to see what you would make, what kind of lemonade that would be.
The freshest of lemonades.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Angela. And thank you to our audience listening in today. Make sure to like, comment, and of course, share Angela Paul's interview today. And of course, thank you for joining us on the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week on another episode.